Good morning, everybody. How are you doing? My name is Phil Burst. This is the Ginger Nut Marketing Podcast on Facebook and live on the podcast as well. Today, what I really want to talk about is how you create an event and training strategy for your business. So this is something I've been working on for about 5 years now, and it's actually become a really key part of our sales and marketing strategy for the business. We're here today at Liverpool Science Park, and in the background on the video you can see my Digital Leaders training banner, which is promoting the course that I'm about to start in about 1 hour's time here today. Digital Leaders is a 6-month training course that focuses on 2 elements: leadership and digital skills. The skills you need in a digital world to grow and develop and implement a really successful digitally focused marketing plan. So today's not a pitch about Digital Leaders, although it's a great course, and I do suggest you go and take a look at it on our website, elephantdigital.co.uk. I started Elephant Digital just over 5 years ago, and one of the first things I thought I really wanted to do was to put on an event. At that time, I didn't really know what putting an event meant in terms of a corporate or sort of a business setting. But what I knew is that if I could get a group of people in the room and talk about what I knew and what I was passionate about and what I believe I could add, and where I believed I could add value, that must be a good thing. So I also thought, well, if I'm meeting people in a one-to-one setting, so if I'm going to, say, 10 sales meetings in a week, that takes me an entire week. Whereas actually, if I can get 10 people in a room at once, I can, inverted commas, pitch to them all at the same time. And it just makes my time far more efficient. So I know that sounds a little bit ruthless, but thinking about your time and how you use your time is massively important when you're an entrepreneur, or whether you're a business owner, whether you're a director in a business who's looking to grow a business. So the first event I put on was about 4.5 years ago, and we did a collaborative effort between myself and another marketing consultant who was working with us at the time, a lady called Lindsay. And we both individually came up with a 25-minute talk. I think mine was about social media at the time, and Lindsay's was about business development, sales and marketing, combining sales and marketing together. And we basically, what we did was we got all our LinkedIn contacts together, exported them from LinkedIn. We had a small email database of a few thousand contacts from Liverpool, which my business partner at the time had. It must have had about, I'm going to guess, about 4,000 contacts of business owners and senior people in business in the Liverpool area. And we just sent out an email saying, free marketing events, grow through marketing, come down, watch, and see if you can learn something. We had it at a place called the Women's Organisation, which is a brand new building in Liverpool, which is focused around women's business. So that attracted a few bums on seats as well. And we just basically put on some teas and coffees, some biscuits, and I think we got about 30 people turn up at that first session. And it was absolutely bloody terrifying, I promise you. I was so scared. And I remember we recorded the session, my talk specifically, and I wanted it because I wanted to be able to play it back and see how I could improve the talk. It was absolutely terrifying. I was really bad. I was umming and I was erring and I was making stupid jokes. I think that the audience in the room enjoyed it that day, and I think they got some value from it. But what it taught us was running an event in terms of promoting your company is a bit of a fine art. It's a bit of a learning curve you have to go through. So absolutely, the first objective is be really clear about your proposition. What are you promising that you will deliver when people turn up? What value are you going to add? If you start there, that's the biggest and most important thing you've got to get right. So if it's 10 tips to launch an amazing social media campaign for 2019, it's clear, it's got takeaways, it's a simple 10-step process. People love that hook, that instant hook. So whether it's the way you need to go about doing X, Y, and Z in your industry, or how to win at X, Y, and Z, whatever your industry and your customers would benefit from understanding, that's the hook, that's the first place to start. The second place is you've got to get an email database together, or at least a database of contacts or prospective customers who would be interested in this event. So I know in the world of GDPR, that's a little bit tricky these days. So whether you're going to have to build an email list or perhaps buy an email list or a hybrid of the two, you've got to have a good email list. And you're going to expect around about 1% of those people to even read the email, and probably 10% of the 1% to actually turn up or register and turn up for the event. So we're up to about 15,000 people now in our database. I mean, I've got 15,000 people in my LinkedIn profile alone, so there's a good 5,000 of those that are kind of UK-based business owners and marketeers. But I've been building it up over about 10 years. Then all the people who work in our company, we've got all their LinkedIn profiles and extracted all their data. We've bought some data, we've acquired some data over time. Every event people come to, we ask them to register and sign up for further events and further promotions. And the golden rule with email marketing, so ignoring legals and GDPR for a second, the golden rule is don't spam them. Only invite them to things that they will get value from. Whether it's free or paid for events, I don't think that really matters. We get pretty much the same response in terms of the final conversion rate from paid for and free events. Now, we generally get a higher volume of people at free events, but that's fine because you'd expect that. But if you get 50 people registering, you generally only get 25 people turning up. Whereas if you get 25 people paying to come to an event, you get 25 people turning up. So that's a little bit of a thought process there. Which brings me on to kind of how much you charge. So if you're starting out your events and your training strategy, 100% free events for the first year is what I would do. 2, 3, 4 free events, get bums on seats, get your practice, get your pitch up, and get your reputation for providing really good events on the table, on the agenda, so people know you're a company to come to. I would then think about introducing a small fee, perhaps in year 2, around about £10 to £15. It's a nominal fee that's basically just there to make people realize that if they're going to register, they need to bloody turn up. And you do it through what's called a commitment fee. So you say, this is your commitment to this event to make sure we have all the correct facilities in place, to make sure we have the correct teas and coffees, the food, all the bits that make an event slightly nicer, slightly more enjoyable, and slightly more fulfilling to the people that come. So you've got your free event, you've got your teaser, your small fee, your commitment event. And then what you can do then is on the back of these free and teaser events, you can sell more paid for events. So our events may be social media masterclass, our digital leaders program, we do LinkedIn lead generation, we do presentation skills, we do content, we do SEO, we do all sorts of different courses throughout the year. And we charge around about £125 to £175 for these half-day sessions. So we normally say it's £175 as the full headline ticket price, and then we'll say it's £125 an early bird special. So in the first 2 weeks, you can actually get the full ticket price for about 30% off, about £125. That normally is enough carrot. That normally is enough carrot for people to pay the early bird offer and say, I've got some value for that, I've got a discount, and I feel like I've got something for signing up early. The graduation from that, the next step from that is things like our Digital Leaders Program, which is a 6-month program with 6 sessions, 6 half-day sessions, and we charge between £750 and £1,000 for that program. It's basically the same price, the same value as doing 6 sessions. I'm just giving people a slight discount, and they get more value from it because I get to know them and their business. They get to know me and get to delve and ask questions for 6 months. And together we get to craft and create a more robust marketing plan for the company. So it allows us more time together. The second benefit of a more cohort-based program is to get to meet and interact with 8 to 12 other people on each cohort, which has the amazing added value of they get to get 12 people in the room, 12 people in the room's insight into their problems. So every session, at the start of each session, we'll say, tell us what you've done in the last 30 days, tell us what problems the business is facing in terms of sales and marketing growth. Then let's go around the room and let's see if we can solve those problems. And if we can't, maybe I can solve the problem during the session. And if we can't from there, all of us will work collectively and collaboratively to help that person solve these problems. I love programs, cohort-based programs like the Digital Leaders Program, because it's a very intense program. You get to know everybody quite intimately, and you really get to the bottom of deeper problems, and you get to create more long-term value together because you've got that kind of peer network to support you as you progress as you progress beyond the 6 months back into your jobs and back into implementing all the tips, tools, and strategies that you've learned. A quick note on how to run events. So this may not work for everybody, but I've got a drama background. I have done some amateur theatre in my time. I've done a little bit of professional theatre in my time. I went to university to do English and drama, so that's kind of a clue to perhaps my nature. I've directed shows, I've produced shows, I've starred in shows. I've done a lot of kind of stage management, a lot of like concerts and events through my time at school, university, and post-university, like in a professional capacity. So my inspiration, my motivation for events and training in the corporate world is actually putting on a really good show. Now, putting on a good show means things that perhaps you wouldn't necessarily think about become very, very important. So the room, the type of room, the environment, the air conditioning. I like to have music playing when people walk in the morning to lighten the mood, to make it a little bit more exciting. I like to have really colorful, really vibrant kind of branding, which I'm pointing to on the video here. The digital leaders branding is quite bright, it's quite vibrant, it's quite aspirational, it's quite inspirational. I want my sessions to be enjoyable, so I make sure that I'm always on form, ready to go, excited, motivated for the session, and that I'm genuinely passionate about what I taught, that I'm genuinely passionate about what I teach and what I'm trying to help people with. That passion has to come from an internal place, it's got to come from inside, but you've also got to switch it on in the morning as well, or in the afternoon or the evening, whenever the event is, and say, now's my time. I'm the ringmaster, I'm the star, I'm the focus of this session, but it's not about me, it's about me making sure that the people that arrive and attend the sessions have a really good session. So we always make sure there's tea and coffee, very important. Always make sure there's biscuits, very important. If it's an early morning session, put breakfast on. If it's a lunchtime afternoon session, put lunch on. If it's an evening session, put a light evening buffet on, some snacks, some nibbles, some sandwiches. And here's the second tip, don't scrimp on the food. It's the one thing that people talk about whenever they go to any session. One, because it's a great icebreaker to talk to the person next to you don't really know and say, oh, isn't the food crap? Or, wow, isn't this food really lovely? And secondly, when they go away and they're talking about it on social media and maybe on testimonial videos you ask them to do, they always bloody mention the food, because we're very instinctive creatures. When we're learning, when we have to switch on, we need to be fed and nourished in order to actually be in the right frame of mind to learn, to listen. So it's actually from a core physiological and biological perspective, you need to make sure your delegates are well fed, well nourished, and ready to listen and learn and to take in what you're trying to teach them. I always make sure the room is nice and airy, so make sure there's air conditioning in the room, or make sure the windows can open if there's no air conditioning. I make sure the light's not too bright, so if there's glare coming in from the sun, close the blinds down. It doesn't need to be pitch black, but just make it comfortable on the eye. Then I make sure you've got things like a really good screen, which I'm pointing to on the video here. Nice big HD, if possible, screen that you can connect to easily, project your PowerPoint, your slides, whatever it is, and make sure people can read it, make sure it's not too far back, make sure it's not too close, make sure everyone in the room can kind of enjoy the whole event, and there's no issues, there's no reasons why they won't enjoy the session. Tracy's just coming in with some breakfast for today's event, so that's absolutely fine. So the next thing we need to do is have someone wonderful like Tracy, who's just walked in, to help you organize the event, because Tracy's very good at helping me do this, because I forget things, I'm trying to focus on the content. So make sure you've got at least one person, if not more than one person, 2 or 3 people to help you set up the event. Make sure it's set up the day before, or perhaps a few hours before. Whatever you do, make sure it's really, really well organized, structured, and you've got all the little details sorted. So, for example, pens. Don't forget pens. It's so important you've got pens for every single delegate. Whether it's a free session or a paid for session, people always forget the pens. Make sure you've got loads of glasses, loads of cups, because if you haven't got loads of glasses and cups, you've got 5 cups for 15 people, it's just less enjoyable, it's just less professional in your organization. The final thing is, make sure you've got a very clear agenda. Make sure you give people a start time, an end time, when they're going to have a break, where they go on their break, where the toilet facilities are, and obviously things like if there's going to be an evacuation procedure or there's any kind of fire drills planned at all. Don't leave anything to chance. Make sure you're in control and your delegates feel like this is going to be a session where I can relax, I can enjoy myself, I can get value from the session and not worry whether I've got to think about the parking meter in 2 hours time, because I've literally just booked 2 hours of parking, because you've already told them this session will be 1 hour and 25 minutes long. Don't worry about your parking. Or if you have worried about your parking, go and put some more money into the meter. Make sure they're comfortable, make sure they're relaxed, and make sure they're ready to engage with you and the content. The reason we do all this is because if we go back to our original purpose of today's session, if we go back to the original purpose of today's talk, today's podcast that I'm doing here, trying to sell, especially in a B2B world, can be difficult in today's market. It's crowded. There's lots of competition. Marketing and advertising cost lots of money. Running events and training are a great way to meet people, a great way to talk about your product and service, a great way to get to know people in a collaborative session, a collaborative working way. The key is to make sure you add value. If you add value, they will remember you and they will come back to you when they're ready to buy one of your products or services. And that's the key. I never pitch in any of my sessions. I might talk about some bonuses, some value adds. So I have, in the odd session in the last year, mentioned the podcast 1, 2, or 20 times, but there's no cost to my delegates to sign up to the podcast. In fact, it's more content, it's more value I'm giving away. So by all means, cross-sell and promote other value-add services, but don't pitch your product or service. Every now and again, you can mention it in passing. Every now and again, you can make reference to your products and services, but your delegates aren't stupid. They'll know they're being pitched to, and they know that when they're ready, you've got the product or service that's right for them. So don't think about it as a sales pitch. Think about it as adding valuable content for your customers and for your prospective customers. The final most important thing is when you're running a training event, and if you're doing it yourself, have fun, enjoy it. It can be quite nerve-wracking to start with, but that's okay, that's fine. It's a learning process. It took me about a year to be comfortable doing these types of sessions, doing these types of courses. So that's fine. Just accept that as part of the learning process and try to enjoy the session as much as you can. The old adage is, if you enjoy the session, there's a good chance your delegates will enjoy the session. Make sure it's fun, make sure it's enjoyable, and ultimately, make sure it's value add. That is how we think about an event and training strategy for your business. I hope that was valuable. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon.